Hi guys, my name is Jack Barkley and welcome back to another episode of the Micropod with Purple Shoots. Last week you saw myself and Richard introducing everyone to the podcast, and today I have a very special treat for you with my guest, Chris Jackson. Good to have you on, Chris.
Hi Jack, thanks for the big build-up.
No problem at all. So if you could just introduce yourself to everyone, just for the people at home.
Okay, hi everybody, I'm Chris Jackson, and I work with Purple Shoots in Lincolnshire and the East Midlands supporting grassroots startups.
Perfect. And so just so everyone can get a bit of background on yourself, can you tell us a little bit about your business journey?
That's quite funny, Jack. I was talking to somebody earlier today and they asked me a similar question. So after about 3 hours, no, it didn't take that long. When I'd explained briefly where I'd been and what I'd done, they said, oh, so you're a serial entrepreneur. And I'd never really thought of myself that way. So do you think I should introduce myself today as a serial entrepreneur?
I suppose, I mean, I know a bit about your background already, but I suppose, yeah, you probably could be classed as that.
Yeah, well, to give you a more defined answer, if you like, I've run my own enterprises, my own businesses since about 1984, and my first business was in the service sector, and then I moved into leisure and tourism, and then in 2015 I had a total change around again, and that's when I collided with academia, and I've worked there. I've been working in academia full time and then part time on entrepreneurial learning.
Perfect. So yeah, you have had quite a varied experience. Your first business, what was that again?
Well, my first business, well, my very first business was, I did absolutely anything I could.
Yeah.
This was in the early 1980s, the black and white days, and I found myself out of work. And there was no work to be had. And this is in the era of Margaret Thatcher, when Norman Tebbit famously told everybody just to get on their bikes and go and find work. And I just thought, well, I can do this. So I started doing anything, absolutely anything. I'd just do little repairs. I'd do painting and decorating. I fixed cars, and that's where it first started. Then gradually grew from there. And then I moved into, let's just call it security. I had a background in electrical engineering. I moved into security, and organically over about the next 15 to 18 years, we built a business up, which ended up employing around 16 people. We worked nationally. It was profitable. We had a good reputation. People thought we were much bigger than we really were, which was quite a good trick. And then that just became, I guess I got bored with it. It became too easy. And I just needed a change. I needed a new challenge. So I ran away to sea. Yeah. And the outline of that story is I thought it would be a good idea, a good thing to do. So I bought a small cruise ship and spent the next 14 years sailing around the Outer Hebrides, watching whales and dolphins and eagles. And
I mean, that's certainly the change.
As you do.
Yeah, I mean, normal reaction when your business is doing well, I suppose. So obviously you've worked, like you've had successful businesses, you've worked in academia, you've done different businesses throughout your time as well. If you were trying to give a bit of advice, because we have a lot of young entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs or someone who has a great idea, but they just haven't quite started yet. If you was going to give a bit of advice to someone considering taking that leap and starting their business, what would you say?
Do it. Just do it. A lot of people get scared. They'll have the idea, they'll have the dream, and they never realize it. If it's in your blood to run a business or to try it, you need to do that. Otherwise, you will never scratch that itch. Now, running your own business, it's not for everybody. And some people try it and they don't necessarily fail, they just hate it. They don't realize how much is involved. And there's a misconception that anybody who runs their own business has a gold mine in the front garden and a money tree in the back garden. And it just doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Some people just rise to the occasion, love it and do it. Some people hate it. However, if it's in your mind, just do it. Give it a go. If it doesn't work, it doesn't matter. You've tried it, and there'll be very good reasons why it didn't work. So either you need to try again and do things differently, or admit to yourself that running your own business or running a business is not for you. And I know over the years, I've worked as a business advisor for many different agencies. And I always remember going to see one client, and I went in and they were sitting there with their head in their hands sobbing, which it's not a nice thing to say. Oh, come on, what's the matter? What's the matter? And the business was going quite well. They had great ideas. They had lovely staff, and they were hating every moment of it. And I said, well, what is it? I just don't want to do this anymore. And I said, okay, then why don't you stop? And it was as if a sack of rocks had been lifted off their shoulders. Now, I know for a fact that they closed the business down, everything was done properly, walked away, got a job in Tesco, and they're perfectly happy working on the checkouts in Tesco. Business just wasn't for them. But going back to your original question, Jack, what would I say to anybody thinking about it? Do it.
Yeah, I think absolutely. That one of the key points, obviously, is people taking that risk, and I suppose you risk never knowing if it could have worked out if you don't give it that go.
Absolutely.
Okay, and another question for you then. Obviously, everyone suffers setbacks at some point, and in business, sometimes you might suffer more setbacks than other people. Can you tell us a little bit about a time when that may have happened to you, where you've suffered a setback, and how maybe you dealt with it, just so other people might be able to respond to that?
Well, I haven't got time, Jack, to go over all of my setbacks.
I did just pick your favourite one.
My favourite one? I could... Oh, I've got many stories. One of my favourite ones was in the latter days of my first business. And as the business had grown, my role had moved. I started off, I had a toolbox, I had a van, I was going out, I was doing work. And then you've got to step away from that because somebody needs to run the business. So then you've got to learn new skills, new tricks. And it's sort of backfilling all the time. So we got to the dizzy heights where I was managing director, and I had a financial director, I had an operations director, I had people doing the admins, who had an account. It was great. Everything was just as it should be. But I also had a sales manager. And I don't know what it is about salespeople, and apologies to anybody listening to this who's in sales, but some salespeople are a breed apart. And I was trying to be very forward-thinking in my outlook. I was trying to run a very flat organization. I was trying to let the employees make decisions for themselves and encourage them to do so. So I'd said to this guy, right, okay, look, what we're going to do is in a few weeks' time, you tell me how you see the sales department moving forward. You tell me who you think our what the key products should be. Where should we put the effort? You do this. And he gave me the worst presentation that I've ever seen in my life. To this day, students at university haven't surpassed the awfulness of the presentation that I was given. And one of the things I'm still particular about is attention to detail, especially when you're dealing with customers and suppliers. They're very proud of their businesses, they're very proud of what they do, and you've got to respect that. And I've always put as much work into working with suppliers as I have with customers. So the presentation was given, and it was coming towards an end, although I didn't know this. And this guy said, so how are we going to do this? We're going to do it by working, by collaboratively working with people like, pressed the key, and there were machine gun and cash register sounds coming from PowerPoint, and things flashed across the screen. And the the supplier's name was highlighted right across the screen and spelled incorrectly. And it was, for me, it was just a final straw. I'd suffered. I was given this kind of opportunity. I'd sat there and suffered for half an hour. And I'm afraid I lost my cool a bit, and I wasn't very polite about it.
I'm not surprised.
And I said words to the effect of, I just don't believe this. And everybody went really silent in the room. And then I thought, no, you can't do this. So I took a deep breath. And one of the people on the sales team said, I don't believe you've just done that. Do you realize what's on the presentation? And the guy didn't have a clue. So I sort of gathered my senses and said, look, I'm really sorry. That was very unprofessional of me. I must apologize, but you've got to realize we've been over this so many times before, and you're still spelling this supplier's name wrong. And I said, please continue. And by this point, he'd slammed the laptop closed. Ooh. So I said, look, I'm sorry. I do apologize. I'm out of order. Please just continue with the presentation. So he opened the laptop, pressed the button, and that had been his last slide. And as he pressed the button, we've got more cash register sounds, and the title at the end came up, and he said, that's it. And he closed it and walked out. So I said, absolutely nothing. It gets worse. He said absolutely nothing, walked out, which left myself and the financial director in the room, who I knew quite well. And I was absolutely fuming. And I'd never done anything like this before, but I turned around, and next to me was one of these note blocks with 500 sheets in. And I picked it up and stupidly flung it across the room at nothing in particular. And it hit the wall next to the window, and every sheet was sucked out of the window into the car park, and every sheet had my company's name and logo on.
Oh, God.
Now, just, that wasn't necessarily a setback, Jack. But it was a time when you just taken a breaking point by a culmination of things. There've been many setbacks, but there's also been many high points. It wasn't all plain sailing at all. Issues with people, issues with customers, issues with debt, issues with paying, all of that. And you just got to work at it and work through it.
Yeah, I suppose, have you ever had them any of them internal struggles, wondering if you was doing the right thing with your business at times, or?
Many times. The second business, leisure and tourism, that is probably to date the hardest thing I've ever done. I didn't realize how much I'd taken on in the running of a small ship. And it was just such a big thing. It was all enveloping, and it just ruled my life for about 3 years until I got on top of it, until I mastered it. And it was all up here. And I would think, this is too big. I can't do this. And then I realized, actually, not only could I do it, but I could do it quite well. And then once I was on top of it, it just, it took on a whole different meaning and went off in a whole different direction.
So would you say that part then was almost a case of there is this time where you're struggling a bit with the business, or you're wondering if you're doing the right thing? Would you just say that is just sticking with it and showing that resilience to keep going then at that point? Or
yes,
whether that's the right decision?
Well, I think that's the thing, Jack. It's one thing to keep going, and it's one thing to keep going in another direction. And the trick is knowing it's not so much blindly pursuing a goal that you've set some time ago and not getting there. If you're not getting to where you want to be, maybe you're heading in the right direction. And this is where business strategy can sometimes fail, because events happen on the way to that target that mean you're never going to get there. And sometimes you've got to change your mind. Sometimes you've got to change what you're doing or how you do it. And it's knowing when and how to change, and thinking, no, it's actually, I can make this decision. It's fine to change. I said I was going to do this, but it's not going to work. So I'm going to change that, I'm going to do this instead. And it doesn't mean you're zigzagging all over the place. Your business is still heading in a general direction, but it is about knowing when to let go as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely some great bits of advice in there that people will definitely respond to. I just wanted to ask before we go, obviously, you know, with the Purple Shoots team as well, what sort of work are you doing with Purple Shoots, and where do you envision that going?
Oh gosh. Well, in true entrepreneurial fashion, we start off in one direction, just as we've been talking about. We start off in one direction, and we're having all sorts of fun because we're thinking about how we do what we do, and also when people talk about entrepreneurship, quite often they stick with an old definition, or they've got the picture that's all to do with Dragon's Den, or The Apprentice, and it's all about the pursuit of money at the expense of others.
Yeah,
it's not. It's far more liberating than that. Basically, entrepreneurship is about adding value. Okay, so you're going to add value without involving money. So you're going to add value socially. And what we've come to realize at Purple Shoots is that small business startup in communities is good for the community. So we're kind of shifting our focus a little bit from, well, it's not about the economy, it's about it's about communities, it's about people. So this is something else we're looking at, and we're also the way in which we support people before they start the business. So we're offering some pre-startup support now, where we get people to think, as I just said before, it's running a business isn't for everybody. So just take them through a gentle process of, right, you've got this idea. Have you tried it? Where do you see it going? How do you feel about doing it? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Not telling them to write a business plan, because if they don't have an idea and they can't be creative with that, a business plan's never going to work. So we're really focused on supporting the individual as well as the idea.
No, yeah, I think that's definitely going to be beneficial to people. And like you said, the support that's actually offered alongside it is something I think most people in the early stages of business will definitely want. We don't have too much time left, but we've loved having you on here. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience before we go?
If it's in your mind to do something for yourself, you can do this. If you really want to do it, you can do it. And there is good, genuine support out there that will help to set you on the way. But don't believe that it's necessarily a lonely journey, because there are many, many people out there who want to go on the same journey as you, or who've just started the same journey that you want to go on. And most of them are waiting there with their hands outstretched, ready to help you. So if you're thinking about doing it, come and have a chat with us. That costs absolutely nothing. We'll even buy you a cup of coffee, but come and have a chat about it. Come and play with some ideas, but don't think that you can't do it without trying.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an important message. And like you said, the chat costs nothing. So it's definitely worth it for people out there. If anyone's considering starting their business, or even just in the early stages of an idea, definitely getting connection with Purple Shoots and go for that chat, and you get a free coffee out of it as well. So that is all we have time for today. Thank you so much for coming on, Chris. I really appreciate it and enjoyed chatting with you.
Absolute pleasure, Jack. Thank you.
No problem at all. So, like I said, that's all we've got time for today. I hope everyone at home has enjoyed watching and listening as much as we have enjoyed making it. You can listen and watch on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, all at Purple Shoots. So please like, subscribe, and follow to keep up to date on all of our new content moving forwards, including business tips and tutorials. Apart from that, we'll see you next Friday. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.